when you talk about vision and they talk about the why, for sure the vision, a lot of people just move on. They're like, no, I got that. You know, and it's like the movie Hitch. You know, it's like, no, show me your moves, Kevin James.
Show me what you mean.
Show me what you mean. You got it. So most leaders out there, and I'm guilty of this. I keep a lot of stuff in my head. I've got crazy ideas in my head, and I'm like, man, I better filter this some before I scare some people with it. You know,
right.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
So most leaders are like, I got the vision, I got the why, but they miss something. Mm-hmm. Their team doesn't know it.
Got to get the buy-in.
Hey everyone, welcome to Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers, where we aim to share real stories about running a successful family business, working through adversity, and pouring back into the community that keeps our doors open. We're your hosts, Taylor, Matt, and Shelby, and we'll bring you relevant local business advice and automotive insights that are sure to change the way you look at running a business, and may even throw in a plug for you to do business with us.
Welcome back, episode 39, Crossroads Conversations with the Lewis Brothers. We're your hosts, Matt, Shelby, and Taylor, bringing you relevant business ideas, going through what works, what doesn't work, how we know what works, and how we know what doesn't work. This week, we are unpacking Unleash Your Team's Power, the buy-in blueprint. It's not just the idea, it's not just the art of leadership, but it's the art of leadership with a compelling vision and then getting buy-in from your team and kind of the nuts and bolts of what we learned, what works, what doesn't work. Hey, shout out, I want to tell you this podcast this week is brought to you by...
Did you get a sponsor?
Yeah, the Lewis Brothers. Brought to you by the Lewis Brothers, because if it is to be, it's up to me. And that means even if you delegate or if you give very clear written, we're going to go through the blueprint of how to get buy-in and get everyone connected on the same vision and the same goal. So that's how we'll get started today.
Absolutely. So diving in, buy-in this week. Last week was accountability culture, and that's completely holding your team, letting know that you have clear expectations, but holding them accountable and making sure that they're living up to whatever your vision is, and you have to share that with them. Go back, and Matt absolutely got in the middle of it. He's holding himself back, but absolutely got in the middle of it last week, so make sure you
recap that. He got in the bushes or he got in the middle of?
No,
you're talking about the data
and everything else, bringing good value there. Hey, always check us out on lewissuperstore.com, and I'm fired up about what we drive today because it just made sense. We have 2 vehicles on Ford's side that offer this, well, 3 if you go to a Super Duty, but offer this type of capability, and I know that a couple of us used it last night, but I'm talking about the F-150 Power Boost.
Oh, baby.
The Power Boost. They took the F-150 that makes so much sense. They took the 3.5 motor that's been so good since 2011, and they somewhat electrified it, kind of made it hybrid. It gets a little bit better gas mileage, not if myself or my brother is driving it.
I noticed this morning when I got a 18.7 miles per gallon.
There is... Maybe you just come in a little lot slower at 4:30
Yeah,
a.m.
4:30 in the morning. Speed is
no
not
stop and go.
No stop and go. So that's
You're
the
just
trick. I went a little
straight
smaller
there.
tire, but the Power Boost. So what about the Power Boost? The Pro Power on board?
Pro Power on board, because the power, we've talked about this, the power is awesome.
Yeah.
The power is great.
A lot of power.
Motor, a lot of power.
Yeah.
But the Pro Power on board, we had some crazy storms that just came through, and my electric's always going to go out, and it goes out.
My electricity went out.
Yes, absolutely. So all went out. We're talking... There's not enough plugs in the bed, and there's ample plugs, and you can plug everything in. I started at my front door and went through my Wi-Fi to my fridge to my lights to...
You started with your Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi?
Yes, I'm going to tell you why. Tell you why.
Okay.
This is real world.
Does your bench have
Why?
mouse
Because
or
you're
Wi-Fi?
Toy Story! I couldn't get my
Your
phone.
bicycle
I
cloud.
couldn't get my phone. The cellular service was down. So, fun fact for you, I didn't know if you know or not, but if your power's out, your Wi-Fi is still rolling. So, Wi-Fi is just the closest to the door. That's why I started with that. Really started
So you
with
plugged in the Wi-Fi, then the
Wi-Fi,
fridge,
went to that,
then the
went all the
TV.
way, TV up to upstairs. I know you laugh about this.
No, you're cool.
And then your bed jet.
20 plus things plugged in.
Did you plug in your bed jet?
That's the only way I could sleep. It's the only way I could
Priorities,
sleep.
America.
Absolutely. So all of this was plugged in.
How much power were you using?
690 watts, and there were at least 10 different extension cords.
So let's put that in reference. So if you get the full suite of our Pro Power on board, it's 7.2 kilowatts.
You're not going to touch
which
it.
is 7,200 watts available.
Yep.
And that ain't peak, that's RMS. That's
I like
usable.
RMS.
So I had plugged in a few less items, but enough that they were watching TV and the fridge was running
See, I knew it.
and the lamp was on. And I was using less than 400 watts. So you have 7,200. You were using 600. I was using 400. And you turn the truck onto generator mode. And so because it's a hybrid, it runs the power off the battery. And then when it sees that the voltage is getting low, it turns the engine automatically on and recharges the battery. And you're talking about like 1 or 2 minute cycles every 10 or 15 minutes.
Yes, because I parked it last night, and you're like, oh, that's another thing to put gas in. My truck had 110 miles till empty, and this morning I think it had 98 miles till empty. So it cycled for 12 hours.
And you ran it all night.
All night long.
Slept good?
Oh, yeah. Like nothing ever even happened, except there was extension cords all over my
So you can get that. Let your family figure out. So you can get that in Super Duty. You can get up to 2,000 kW in the bed. You can get F-150. You can kind of get it with all different engines. To get that big suite, you need it from a Power Boost or from a Lightning.
It's 2.4 to a 7.2, or Lightning, you go full 9.6.
9.6 kW.
We're gonna do some damage with that.
You can do a whole lot. You
weld with that.
You could weld, and you could hook your air conditioners multiple up to that.
Yeah.
So we really got off topic there. No, it was topic.
But the cool thing is you can drive your generator, and it was not inconvenient. I flipped my truck around, backed it up to the door, ran the extension cords through the window, and then I felt like a hero to my kids because like, man, if Dad wasn't home, I don't know what we'd do. It'd be dark and nothing worked, right? And it was right there. You didn't have to dig it out and clean out the carburetor and
start
how's
pulling
this
on the
thing
side.
work?
And,
I'll tell you a big difference too, because I had ran a generator last night. I didn't have a power boost connected in, and it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, powered all my stuff, and I flipped the breakers over. But then I had ran over to your house, and I immediately could tell the difference in the noise. Because I've got this construction generator. Now, I put the woo pow out, but you could hear it. You know, like a construction
You can't
site.
hear the truck.
And the truck and all, it was just silent. You know, even when it cycled through. So what a great feature
It is.
that now your everyday tool of your F-150 has in it.
Because it makes sense, because I can drive it, I can spend the money, and my generator's there whenever I need it. I'm not buying a generator, putting it in a closet, anything I can talk about. So
Yeah.
available on a whole lot of different suites as far as the trucks, but Power Boost, best fuel mileage, and has an onboard generator. Really cool right there.
Love it.
So
like it.
diving in today, time to turn you loose.
All right, understanding the why, communicating vision and purpose. Now, a lot of people, when they hear this subject, when you talk about vision and they talk about the why, for sure the vision, a lot of people just move on. They're like, no, I got that. You know, and it's like the movie Hitch. You know, it's like, no, show me your moves, Kevin. Yeah,
Show me what you mean by
Show me
you
what
got
you
it.
mean. You got it. So most leaders out there, and I'm guilty of this. I keep a lot of stuff in my head. I've got crazy ideas in my head, and I'm like, man, I better filter this some before I scare some people with it. You know,
Right.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
So most leaders are like, I got the vision, I got the why, but they miss something. Their team doesn't know it.
Got to get the buy-in.
Or let's take somebody that took the next step and they put together a memo and then they emailed it out or they passed it out. They're like, no, check, I got it.
That was a layer deeper, right?
It was, but you missed it. You still missed it.
didn't get it fully
What
delivered.
had happened, it's baseball season. What happened is you actually made it to the plate with your bat, but then you just stood there. And you're like, no, I got my bat, my helmet, I got up to the plate.
So you had the vision,
Yeah,
created a memo, and emailed it out.
you did.
Handed it out.
But you're just standing there. So what I want to talk, and then you guys can run with it here, is where the rubber meets the road is when you get the buy-in of the vision. I'm not going to say your vision, the vision of the company, because that could have come collectively from people, all right? And then that starts to spread throughout. But we're all salespeople. And I do want to take a moment and tell everybody in the audience this. If when I say you're a salesperson, you cringe and you're like, I'm not a salesperson, think again. Yeah. We're all in sales. Everybody always says a salesperson is, the one that sells cars or real estate or this. You got to realize we're all in sales. I don't care if you're going to the bank to get a loan.
Dinner.
You've got to sell them on why they give you that. If you're trying to get a job or investors, you got to sell them. Your team, you must sell them on your vision and your idea if you ever expect to get some traction from it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. And where I want to start before we have our big powwow of 100 people in the room selling a vision, we start smaller than that with some catalyst.
Yeah, and so being careful not to dissect the whole thing down to there. So if you see the multi-layers, we'll start with what we may call our vision people or our focus group.
Okay.
To understand that we could have a lot of ideas and that we're just looking for one or two that might fit into the rhythm that we're moving and the direction that we're going without having to worry about people's feelings get hurt because they didn't, you saved your one idea, right? And you took it to Shark Tank and they said, get out, right? So we start with our vision people that one aren't going to take it and run down to the water cooler, the coffee, and say, hey, here's what the Lewises are doing.
Sure.
Right? That hey, it's just vision time. Let's just whiteboard. Hey, here's our problem. Or here's our next opportunity. It's one of the two. It's generally the same idea. One's called a problem, one's called a next opportunity. And so we start dreaming on that. Hey, here's the problem. And we start looking at why are we having that problem? Okay, what's the issue? Do we not have quality inspection? Do we not have a proper how-to? And so we dissect the whole thing before we start solving the problem.
Yep.
So understand what the problem is, how it's created and or what's the byproduct of it, where it's happening, who all it affects, and then that'll that might be our meeting before then we say, okay, we need a vision group of fixed ops or sales, or we need the office included in here. And then we say, okay, let's get all of those people of our vision people, not all the people, and then let's start throwing darts and say, when we say, what if this? And so, okay, don't explain it, just put it up there. We'll put them all up there, and then we'll say, okay, let's run that gamut. Let's run that one.
Yep.
Let's run that one. Does that solve it?
I think what you've hit on there, and I'll hit people because sometimes people want like a step 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna say 3 steps here. You start with step 1. And that's the 3 of us in here. And we're looking at our business metrics, poking holes going, man, we're over capacity here. There's opportunities in another area. And you can listen to other podcasts where we've identified those. Yeah. And then we talk collectively, at an executive level before we even get that vision group and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Let's spitball this a little bit. If we sit with it, it still makes sense. Then let's get our vision group together. Now, I want to pause in case somebody's new to the podcast, and let's talk about that vision group. That vision group is compiled by a small group of people within your organization. It does not have to be a certain title or position, but what you want there is people that are good idea people, not necessarily good doers.
Nope.
A lot of times the people that implement and are good doers, they're not the best visionaries, and that's okay. You need both.
Yep.
But then also the people that are in that room, it could be 2 people, it could be 5 people. It's not 20. Those people know that y'all might talk about 100 ideas and only one of them will come traction, and that's okay. There has to be trust there that they're not at the water cooler. They're not broadcasting it out everywhere, that they're just helping you in R&D and development.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think y'all definitely hit all of the nails there going down of what you need to do, but it's more so starting and going through, making sure you start with that core group, then it progresses on from there. And so many people you were talking about sending out an email or do anything else to think, hey, I'm going to go and do this. And a lot of times we see that because it's maybe that it's the non-confrontational way to be able to manage or do anything, or sometimes people act like they do that because it's something that they necessarily wouldn't want to do or they don't know how to do, because there's a big fear sometimes that, hey, I know I need to train on this.
Sure.
It's no different than I drug managers out on the floor the other night and I said, hey, we need to make sure at the end of the night we are everything you're asking them to do, we ask them to do it. And I kept telling them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, then I was like, I'm going to go out there and do it because they haven't. So then I looked up and they're around. It's because of fear of being called out that you're not actually physically doing what you're supposed to do. So,
and I think there's a time for memos like you talked about. If we're sending, like the other day, we had to send out holiday schedule reminder for the year. Like, okay, we've already gone over that. That's a memo. But when you're trying to get buy-in for a vision on something that's new, you need a core team. So we've talked at an executive level. We've said, hey, here's what we need to look at. We get a core group of 2 to 5 people together. We spitball what's going to be the best there. They then, before we meet with a team, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, they become the catalyst. There are anchors.
Yep.
Because, and if you guys listening out there are, your owners, your entrepreneurs, it's very rare that you're going to get a whole lot of employees, even though you say you have an open door policy, that come into your office and say, hey, I really want to talk to you about that procedure. But you know where they will talk about it?
A layer down.
A layer down.
Yeah.
A layer down. So you need that core group of people that are catalysts if you want an idea, a process, a change to be able to get gas and keep moving forward. And that's where that comes from.
And I think that you say you don't need, you only got so many bullets, so many meetings, only so many words to be said in a meeting before you get watered down. Right? We've all been in those meetings like, give me toothpicks, hold my eyes open, and I'm going to fall asleep. So you have to understand what's memo worthy and what's meeting worthy. If it's something that you need to discover and work on, that's a meeting thing. If it's a memo of a reminder of this, that, and the other, send it in a memo. But you have to understand, generally, if you feel like it needs a meeting, you need to try to focus on generally 1 or 2 things at the most, because they need to understand the backstory, the reason, the why, the how, the who it affects, so that you can really, really, really dissect that, and then they understand that it has value, because otherwise that in a memo doesn't have all the things that we're going to talk about today, so that you get the team involved to the buy-in to your blueprint to unleash the total power that we talked about in your blueprint. So that's super important to understand what's memo worthy and what's meeting worthy.
No, that makes a bunch of sense, and we'll continue to take you down this process as this podcast goes on. But we do have to pause for a minute for the fun fact quiz of the week.
What do you got?
So here we go. The development of which iconic automotive feature initially met with skepticism and resistance from some within the industry ultimately became a standard safety requirement and significantly improved driver and passenger safety. Was this A, power steering? That was a good one. B, the automatic transmission, C, seat belts, or D, air conditioning?
Talking about something that has skepticism, had resistance from some within the industry, ultimately became a standard of safety and requirement and significantly improved driver and passenger safety.
I'm going to tell you, you can probably just go ahead and throw out air conditioning.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right.
comfort.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so you got 3
All right,
options:
I got
power
you.
steering, automatic transmission, or seatbelts. We'll come back to that.
You bet.
Absolutely.
All right. Step 2 in this process, we talk about the blueprint and getting the why and get the buy-in, is involving your team.
Yep.
Involving your team. Don't have it perfected, but we have a pretty decent hold on this of how to make it work. Fostering participation and ownership within your team. So without unpeeling the entire banana, so we have discussion to talk about. If you can involve your team, so we've gone from step 1 of focus group
Yep.
to then to your vision team, and then you land on an idea.
Yep.
And I've talked about this before, that you need to have 1 problem, 3 solutions, your pick, and then land on one of those,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so then once you've decided on that, we've already gone first meeting,
Yep.
second meeting with the vision board. Okay, here's our main thing we're going to work on, one
Yep.
thing. Here's how we're going to tackle it. But before you go to market with your team, there's some steps that we have to do, that we've learned to do, to help make sure that it's properly delivered.
That's very true. Now, I'm going to give everybody a pro tip here so you don't make this mistake, because I've made this mistake before. When you get to step 3 and it's time to pitch and sell your team on it, You're not asking for any more ideas.
No.
You're not asking for any more feedback.
That meeting's over. We've closed that door.
We've already done that.
Yeah.
You know, it is now time that everybody's sales hat is on.
Yeah.
And the better job you do at this, the faster whatever the idea or the vision is will take flight.
Yep.
So you have to go in that, like you said, with a very clear expectation. Here's what it is. Here's why we're doing that.
Yep.
Here's how we're going to roll it
And
out.
so and I know you go over this, but there's some things that before they say, okay, go to all the techs, go to all the salespeople, go to the entire team, here's our new policy. There's a few things that we do, and newsflash for you. You generally know how to solve the problem. If you've gone to meeting 1 and meeting 2, you've read it somewhere, you saw it within a system, or you have a software. Even if it is a software, and you don't have to write it, you don't have to be the tech guru, there's still one thing that you need to do, so then your catalyst, the layer below you, knows that they've done sneakily, you've made them do it, but some due diligence, so they say, we've looked at this, this, and this is what I picked.
Absolutely. So when you walk them through that, one, you got to reinitiate just slightly about here was the issue or the opportunity. Here's the opportunity. Here's what we vetted out. You know, here's the options.
We've
we
landed
need your
on 2
help.
or 3 options.
We've landed on 2 or 3 options there. Here's where we're going forward with. Here's how we're going to roll it out. Here's how we're going to gain traction. You know, but you must slow down and get their buy-in. They need to understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Here's what we're going to do. And then you also have to give them the benefit on here's why we're doing it. It'll make your job easier, or it'll make it where you're more successful, or, you know, it's the with them. You've got to be able to show what's in it for them.
Yeah, and we've probably you've learned this from, obviously, whether it be of dad or any previous generations of family going through, then you have taught to us of the buy-in is so important of your managers that help you lead that team, because if not, they do not like being sprung upon or anything else. And then your level of being able to be successful at getting anything in there goes way downhill, because that group, if they're not pulling with you, they're pulling backwards against you.
I've seen that 100 different times and done it wrong too many times, and learned this is how the blueprint to properly introduce something new or to solve a problem. So whether it's a software, and I see this constantly, that we're working on the business, right? They're working in the business, but you still have to, you don't have to, but you're going to fail if you don't. You have to have buy-in. So before I release Numa, after I've done all my due diligence, I bring in my service managers, my dispatchers, anyone that I think that might have an issue. And I say, hey, what's number one concern that you get from a consumer about the status of the vehicle? Like, hey, lack of communication. Okay. I was like, and if you go to service advisors or parts counter people, what do they say they don't have enough of? Time, right? It's like, okay, well, wouldn't you agree that if we could communicate to the customer more with less effort from the people that are having to do it, that would alleviate stress from our employees and the customers would be happy about more communication? They said, yeah. It's like, okay, I want you to do a demo. And so then I get with the software team and say, look, I'm good to go. But you have to sell it to these guys, and you've got 15 minutes, and I want you to hit these 5 bullet points.
And that's it.
Do not go over cost.
No.
Do not go over your engineering. I want you to hit these 5 bullet points and to present to my service managers, the parts directors, whatever it may be. And so then I have a meeting after the meeting. It's like, what do you guys think? Do you think that works? And they're like, oh, yeah, right? Because I presented the problem we had. But then what we do is it becomes their idea. So then when they have the weekly meetings, I'm not like, hey, guys, remember we have a NUMA meeting? They're like, nope, it's already on the calendar. Because then I get with the account representative and I say, hey, I need you also to set up accountability meetings, and I need you to pitch that to the team. And so then I'm not having to drag them to this. And I've seen it before where managers aren't involved. And I'm like, why won't they get on a Viata performance call? I'm like, they were not involved in it. And they feel like, well, I do it because the Lewis is making me do it. It wasn't their idea.
That's so key there. And I hope everybody got what Shelby just said. He invested more time and more patience from the get-go to create buy-in so he didn't have to go around and babysit it after it was launched. So you can pick one of the two. You may think that you're too busy and you don't have the time to go through this with your leadership team. It'll cost you tenfold the time down the road, and it'll fail. Now, Taylor, you talked about something that just triggered something in my mind I need to go over. Because we're very fortunate to have some long-term employees. We are. Some of them are doers, and some of them are idea people. But if you leave any of the people that have been with us 20 plus years, 15 plus years out, they feel like, man, I thought I was a part of the team and part of the success. So I'm going to tell you, there is a handful, not a ton, but there is a handful of people that have been with us that I know is crucial to our success in launching a vision or an idea, but that are not visionary people.
Okay.
So just because they've been here 20 years, that does not mean they get in the vision meeting.
The
That's
tenure
step two.
just doesn't say, hey, I get to be on the vision board.
But before we go to step 3, I will pull that person personally in my office, spend 10 minutes with them, and go over it with them to make them feel special and to have buy-in before we go to step 3, and that's the entire team. Because there's still a catalyst. Their brain doesn't think visionary-wise. They're like, just tell me what to do, boss, and I'll do it. I'm on your team.
Yeah.
But they still want to feel like that they're in the know before everybody else knows.
Yeah, that if you were going to hit that, I was going to hit that because that's so important because what you'll do is set up a new system or a new process. You'll send out an email to say, hey, this meeting is to come to go over this. And if they don't know about it and they're a 10-year employee or somebody that generally carries some weight, you need to just do a quick meeting. It's like, hey, here's how it's going to roll out. Do you guys have any questions? Here's what's coming down the line. And so then when the guy across the office gets the email and had no clue, and not everyone has to know.
Correct.
They're like, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, well, crap, I thought you knew everything.
Yeah.
It's like they don't trust you with anything anymore. And so you could take a quick second to allow them to have the little, because yesterday we were looking at a guy's collection, and we were talking about how they used to unveil cars back then and now how they do it now. And you express frustration, and we all feel it about how manufacturers don't even tell us, and we're pretty heavily invested in this, that they just tell the world first. And so it's nice to be on that inside to say, hey, tomorrow we're going to release a brand new car. Please don't leak this information. And that's the problem. They got some people they can't trust, but the rest of us have to deal with it. But we don't have that info. So then you get the opportunity. Are you sour about it, or are you a catalyst for it? So if you can give them some information, remember, they're not on the vision board and they're not helping you make that decision, but you give them some inside tips. And so then they're like, oh, yeah, that was that thing Matt and I talked about. Yeah, that's solid. It's going to help us big time.
I mean, nothing takes the wind out of your sail more than you're coming in jacked up, ready to go. We talked about it. You're like, woo, this is going to be great. And the boat already has water in it before you.
You can just tell it like the faces.
It's like, oh, how did I miss that step? So
you've been sweating in the trenches, doing your due diligence, met with all the vendors, went through all the systems, and you forgot to involve some key players. It's like the quarterback just worked his tail off. And he forgot to involve the snapper, and he's like, how did I miss that?
I know, but then sometimes just reaction, and I've been there before, is you want to just say, just do it. I'm your boss.
Yeah, I'm paying you for it.
And just do it. And will they go through the motions? Yes, they will. They don't want to lose their job. But do you get the same results that if you had buy-in? No, you don't.
No.
There will always be, and y'all have heard me talk about this before, there will always be the meeting after the meeting. Always. Any industry. You can find it in the construction world. You can find it in the education world, the automotive. There's always a meeting after. In the politics, meeting after the meeting. So you are not, as a business leader, you'll never be invited to the meeting after the meeting. Okay? You'll never be there.
Which is kind of okay.
It's okay. But what you want to make sure is the people that are in the meeting after the meeting, they've got your back and they're supporting you. Because if you can roll it out and then it's verified and stamped at the meeting after the meeting, you're off to the races. The only way you do that is step 2. You're absolutely getting all that buy-in. And then don't forget about your ancillary people, because those are the doers, and they got your back.
Oh, yeah.
They just don't have the vision. You get them in. So let's go back to step 3, and Shelby made a really good point earlier. When you get ready to build your meeting for step 3, you're going to pitch the idea, you're going to show them all stuff. You go back to your vision board from step 2, like what you were talking about, going, hey, here's the issue. What's the frustration? You took, service, for example. What's the frustration? Let's spitball all this up on the whiteboard. That's the same thing you use to set up selling in step 3.
But you vision time,
Yes.
you're going to leave it all open and you're not going to say anything.
Correct.
In step 3, you're going to answer it. Like, I didn't let you guys fill in because I didn't want the possibility that your thought was different than mine. Just when I asked you guys that, this is exact food for thought. And so I said, hey, what's the number one struggle with service advisors? This was not step 1. This is podcast I'm teaching.
Exactly.
Level 3. I said, communication with customers. And you're like, you guys both agree because it's real.
Yes.
Right? So that's so important. You have the same framework.
Yep.
But you don't just say, hey, you want to go eat somewhere?
No, you're leading them.
No,
to what?
you dumbed it down. So you took like, hey, we all identified this was the issue. You're not asking for feedback. You're taking the spitball idea out of it.
Yes.
So the middle part you take out. The first part's there for the awareness.
Yep.
Then you sell them on the idea. And then here's how we're going to implement it, roll it out.
Can I just stop for a second and say that we could recite this in our sleep underwater, but I was just it's still, you have to be so intentional in doing that. And there's little things, and there's systems are large things, but there's little processes and procedures that you just have to stop for a second. And it might be that you just shoot the article to them just so they know, but because I'm sitting here thinking, man, there's ways that I could have given more information, like finance training. Like, we were sending the guys to finance training. I was like, dang it, I should have just sent them the information before I sent them all the information, right? Because they were like, well, I don't know anything. I was like, you don't have to know anything. It's training. Do you want to be in it? But I'm like, so human does happen, and even if you do know it, you screw up. So it's okay.
Hey, I'll give you another example because it sometimes, stories and actual reality help drive it home.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about communication with service. I'll tell you another one where we had to get buy-in, and y'all remember the whiteboard on this one. It maybe one of my masterpieces on the whiteboard, I'd just like to say, before Shelby took it all away from me. Before we got ready to move, all of our parts, all of our vehicles, all of our computers, everything. That was a massive deal. We first talked how we were going to do it, and then we brought in the correct people that would help us go, what are the systems to put in place? And we have whiteboards on whiteboards.
That's probably, if you think about it now, that's what started micro meetings.
It really was. Yeah,
that's
probably
what started them.
Yep.
Right? Because we were able
That
to
makes
get
sense.
a
I
lot
didn't think
done.
about that.
That's what started last year, January, February-ish. That's what started,
Yeah.
Because then we would miss things.
Yes.
And we'd have people like, okay, what else are we missing here? What's in it? And then parts guy would be like, well, you got to relabel the bends. It's like, okay.
Put it up there.
Right? Put it up there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so we found the problem. And then the next meeting was like, okay, who will handle that? And so then we delegated all that because we realized this big monster.
Yep.
And then it was smooth.
Then it was smooth. And then everybody, too, what I've made definitely multiple times a failure in my past is not having enough chiefs when it comes to something that big. So then the funnel all came back to me about, what are we going to do?
Which is tough because we're chiefs, and chiefs don't like giving some of their chiefmanship to someone else. Now, they like giving to Indians, but to give, hey, you are now chief of this.
Yes.
And then you're just left there, just sitting in your chief pants, just by myself.
Just getting clobbered. But there is some relief, and you finally see it, once you do that, and then you're up in the press box.
I'm like, hey, go see Ryan. He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's got it.
Yep.
You got faith and trust in him because he was in that step too.
Yep.
So then we went to step 3, and then once we finished, everybody was like, everybody from outside looking in, how did y'all do that? Who did you hire?
And it seems so simple, but it was just and you talk about it, but you started the meeting and said, hey, here's our things, and didn't know how it would all go because it was a vision meeting.
No, I know.
But then if you're a leader and if you're a doer, you kind of figure it out. But it's like, Taylor, I see you sitting over there. You hadn't said much. What's on your mind? What are we missing?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a vision meeting. That's different than a teaching meeting or an explanation meeting. It's like, I'm just thinking, how in the world are we going to figure out all the nuts and bolts, physically the nuts and bolts. It was like, okay, well, like, how do you do it now? Okay, and do you want to change it? Is that good? Is that bad? And so then in that meeting, you just started the meeting, and here's the idea, or here's the problem.
Yep.
What's your ideas of how do we solve it? And then once you got it, it's like, okay, you're in charge of that.
I think that's a great point, and I'll give you a tip on how that happened. That was scary to do at first, by the way, okay? Because you think in charge, you always have to have the answers. I knew the initial questions I was going to ask.
Yes.
Okay? I didn't know how deep the questions would go, but I knew the surface level questions I was going to ask. And I intentionally, when I asked the question so I could learn.
Yeah.
So I asked to listen to learn, not listen to respond. Most people listen to respond. And the quick telltale on that is if you're sitting there listening and your mind's going, how do I respond to this? How do I respond? What am I going to say? Would they shut up so I can tell them what I'm thinking? You're not actively listening.
Yeah.
But if you listen, then Ryan brings up about, hey, what about this? And it's like, okay, expound on that for me. Whiteboard that up. All right, inventory, boom, boom, boom. Office, boom, 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 boom. And then you ask another question, and then it comes fruition. We kind of backed all the way up to step 2 there. But that was some good stuff because that's where the preparation for a smooth step 3 comes from.
And it's okay. Can I just tell you this? It's okay to not have all the answers.
That's a hard one to come to grips with.
Right? It is okay.
But it's true.
People might look up to you more if you say, look,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do here, but I know we have the right people and the right team. Can you help? Because generally, I don't know if it's because we were supposed to or because we have to or because we'd never discovered what if we didn't know. But it's opened the doors, and we've had in our micro meetings someone say, can I be honest without getting fried? I don't know how to do that. And it's allowed me to be able to say that. It's allowed them to be able to say that. It's like, can I tell you that I think I hate CDK because I don't know how to use it, because I haven't been properly trained, which is my fault. Right? And so then I don't use it to its full potential. Does anyone else have that issue? And they're like, oh, yeah, I am awful in this. I'm like, okay. So then here's the problem. Here's the solutions. But it's okay if you don't know the answer. Now, it doesn't mean it's not okay to not find the answer.
Yeah.
Right? You can't just be like, it's okay to be average or mediocre. It's okay if we don't communicate to our customers. It's okay if we don't deliver on what we promised. No. You have to, in the end, do what you said you were going to do, but it's okay if you don't know if you have the right in step 2, the visionaries of how to handle that, and then go to the number 3, the doers.
Can I tell you a pivotal point in my career, which was what you just said, finally smacked me into the face where I had to say that and had to do it? Because in the past, like you talked about, if there was a problem, I might table it so I can go listen to a podcast, read a book, research the internet, try to solve it all. I'll tell you which one there was not an answer no matter where you looked for that just smacked me in the face and said, this is what we got to say, was COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I can remember in COVID having the manager meeting and saying, guys, I don't know what the game plan is. I don't know what we'll do, but I promise you that together we'll work through this and we'll figure out some solutions.
Yeah.
And no one ever thought less of you for that. It's just like, hey, I appreciate your vulnerability.
Yep.
Let's figure it out. And you don't let it fail, but you just say, hey, I don't know, which was so backwards of what we had always been done or taught or whatever.
So I think back on step 3, let's go back there for just a second, and then we'll move on to the next subject. Back to step 3, remember that meeting, you're doing a small recap, like Shelby pointed out from step 2, but then you're just selling on it.
Yeah.
It's not time for ideas. You're selling. You must be, as a leader, especially on a massive thing, you have to be involved there, okay? And I know you're busy. I'm busy. These guys are busy, but you're not too busy to, in our case, get 100x.
Yeah.
When you have, there's power in, if it's a major decision, not holiday schedule, okay? Major decision that you're rolling out to get everybody's buy-in, that you're present. You don't have to talk the whole time, but you're present to get everybody's buy-in to make sure when we leave the port, the boat's headed in the right direction and we had fuel in it, we got the cargo, and the crew's on board.
Yeah, and you didn't have to do it all yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really.
All right, automotive fun fact quiz. We talked about the development of the iconic automotive feature that initially met with some skepticism, resistance from the world. The industry use became standard safety requirement. Improve the driver and passenger safety. A, power steering. B, automatic transmission. C, seat belts. You guys ruled out D, air conditioning. What's your thoughts?
People might think it's an automatic transmission because, heck, nobody knows how to drive a manual transmission nowadays.
But back in the days, the automatic was not the quality that it is now.
Sure, no.
And so if you got automatics like you, yuppie, that thing's just going to blow up. If you want to know if it shifts, get a manual, and then the only way it won't shift is if you don't shift it.
You know, the answer, and obviously I see the answer to this question here, but it reminds me that if you take a decade of this away and somebody else, the next generation, they know no different. They don't complain anymore about this.
Yeah, no, but if you go back a couple generations, the answer is seatbelts.
It is seatbelts.
And they'll be like, man, I rode up on the dashboard. I rode in the back of the car looking backwards, or I was in the bed of the truck.
And everybody that hears about politics and stuff and this regulations these days, they think it's something new. People were throwing a fit about seatbelts. Hey, you're taking away my rights. You're telling me what to do. I mean, it was a riot.
Yes.
Okay. But it was for the good of everybody of seatbelts. Now we get in and it's habits. You put it on. It's like you feel naked if you don't put it on, you know?
You can't go 4 feet without the
They went over it says ding-a-ding-a-ding. They went over this analogy the other day and had a guy that was getting on the interstate, and this will really bring home. You want to know why? And everyone says I used to do this, used to do that. It's because the speed limit used to be 45 to 50, and this guy was like getting on in my old classic car, getting on the interstate, compared to new age now. So he gets on, he hammers it, and he's just trying to get on it, gets up to 50. He's like, all right, we're good. And the guy's in a new modern age, he's like, oh gosh, I'm up to 95, just listening to his music, cruising along, because modern technology has made things so smooth, so fast.
I mean, if you haven't driven an old car on the interstate at 75 or 80, like the 74 Bronco that we have, if you drive that thing, the steering wheel's like this just to go straight, left, right, and then when you hit the brakes, you better use 2 feet and know that it's going to turn right when you brake, so you got to turn left. And to get to 75 or 80, buddy, you better have your helmet on. You would be a fool to not wear a seatbelt. So, and then you're right. In a new technology, you can be cruising 95 non-intentionally, just trying to efficiently move through traffic, and because traffic was going 75 or 80, and you always pass people. So that's why seatbelts are now improved significantly of the safety features of vehicles.
Yep, absolutely. So diving into, we've talked about involving your team and understanding the why, but from the buy-in to execution. So getting the buy-in moving when leadership is really in place. So looking at the whole idea there, you as moving as a leader business, how do you get from the buy-in stage and moving, hey, let's go ahead. We've kind of already talked about this a little bit of rolling into, but, really moving into, hey, we've had the raw, we're moving forward. How does that execution, how do you get that into place?
So once you have the team meeting with everybody, okay, which was in step 3, you're letting them know, hey, here's the problem we had, here's the solution, and then here's the game plan on how we're rolling this out, who's going to be affected, and then who I need help with, and here's a date and a timeline. You must establish that. It's not just open like, hey, you guys just start working it in your daily activities, work on it when you can. No, people need a date. If not, everybody will procrastinate. They will. So after that gets rolling, okay, and you're walking around making sure, I'm talking about a massive idea or implementation here. You're checking it to make sure it's rolling out like it should be. My encouragement is you take the people back from step 2, maybe a week later, depending upon what the subject is, you bring them back in, but then also add back into that group a couple doers. So you have your small group and go, hey, let's touch base. Have we ran into any obstacles we didn't think about? How's that implementation going? But then you also, since they were your catalyst, you say, hey, next Tuesday we're meeting on this. I need everybody to bring me updates and statuses to let me know how we're tracking, what we need to adjust. So they come to that meeting prepared and they're like, oh gosh, now they're expecting me to help them roll this out. They want the feedback. I'm being held accountable.
That's really good. The roles and responsibilities of going from top level leader to then your sub leaders and sub leaders, then you give them some buy-in. And I need not only like, hey, because you ask bad questions, you get bad answers. Hey, how's it going with the rollout of X? Oh, it's going good. Any pain points? No, it's fine. Unless you got somebody just really likes to talk, which we all have them, you're not going to get the real under the hood feedback. So then if you can task them, which takes a little extra effort from both sides, you to ask the relevant questions, and two, them to have to actually show up with something. But you can say, hey, next week, we're going to go over progress from this week to next week, and I need you to bring me first layer deep.
Yep.
What's the pain point? What's keep it, so how good have we done at it, and what's kept us from getting to 100% on that? And so then you can really make decisions based on facts of did it improve, did it not improve, what happened.
Sure.
And then you can say, okay, we see the numbers. Now, what's your thoughts? And then they're really, really, really bought into the, oh, shoot, I got to show up with what I'm supposed to have, and I need to have relevance to my answer.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, and I'll tell you one of the easy ways to do this to have buy-in, and then so you're not stressing yourself about what should I go over next or how do I communicate that. One of the things we do during our micro meetings, some of our micro meetings we have once a week, some of them are twice a month, some of them are once a month, depending upon the department. One of the things that we'll ask is, hey, give me your takeaways. What are your takeaways from this meeting that you're going to work the most on? And then what are you going to accomplish by the next time we meet? You keep those notes, and then that's how you start the next meeting off. Hey, you said by this meeting you'd be working on X process. Give us an update on that.
That's my favorite thing, and I like to, even if I'm just involved in a meeting, because I don't want to say it doesn't have anything to do with me, but I'm not the mover on it. I'm not the catalyst behind it, but I am the motivator, the accountability person per my department versus another department. And so then what I get to do, so I don't get fidgety because I maybe know the answer or maybe know how to solve it, but I need them to figure it out, is I'm just taking notes of like, hey, what's the current items? Okay, what's the goal for next week? Okay, what do we need to bring? And then I get to collectively, because it's my jam and it works for me, and then I get to share that with the whole team. Hey, here's the notes. So they don't ever have like, oops, I didn't know, or shoot, I didn't have that, So then I get to recap that. So even if you need to be involved with that, but you're not specifically the doer of that, it's still important.
It's so important that I just heard there that a lot of people go through and do and implement and put in place. And I'm not saying you have to be at every single thing. If you don't show importance to whatever you're putting in, doesn't matter how good it is, it's never going to stick, and it's never become a staple of moving forward. So even if it's something that you are being in the middle of and you're just there observing everything and you're not doing anything like you talked about as far as you're not involved in the meeting, it's so important for you to show that is important to you.
It's important to show that, and it's also important to check on the quality of the meeting. And if you can just put it on, if you can hit them all, then hit them all, especially if you can multitask a little bit, like if it's a Zoom meeting or something, because they need to see that it's important enough for you to be there, just like you said, but also you need to see the quality of it, because I can tell you about a performance call that we have with one of my vendors, because I'm not going to pay any vendor without saying, I need a rate of return from you. I'm paying you. I need to see what you've solved, and then I need you to give me 3 key areas that we can improve on based on our stats. And I want that every 2 week or a monthly call, because there's been some of those calls that I've gotten, and I'm not leading the call. I'm in the background. You guys are in the background, right? But they know that you're there. You might unmic and say, hey, thank you so much. Appreciate you. I'm just going to be in the background. Holler if you need me, but I'm listening. Because the performance manager say, hey, manager, do you have any questions? Nope, everything's going good. Okay, well, how many did you do last month? Oh, it was great. Okay, how are you? And there's times to be positive, and there's times to be real, to say, I need help. Or tell me what else, because some people won't ask that because it's just busy work. We see it during our meetings that people are working on stuff. It's like when we get in here, I say, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, right? The same thing in those meetings. So you have to get in those meetings to realize, and then you need to have that meeting with your performance manager and say, hey, that's not how that's supposed to go. So you can have 2 meetings. The meeting with the performance manager say, I expect more out of you. That's what I'm paying you for. And I know you have more insight to share with the team. And I saw these two low-hanging fruits, and I don't even run this thing.
System,
and then
yeah.
you get with the other side of the team's like, come on, guys, we pay for this. There had to be something you could have asked. We can't just tell them, like, hey, everything's good. And I have those conversations of everything's good and we're great and grand,
Sure.
wonderful, right? That's not the time.
No.
I think a couple things that I want to hit on that you just went over is we've talked about this in other episodes, but the dynamics of the three of us, and we're all in different positions, yet if in one of the subjects, if one of it's more passionate or if it's an idea, it doesn't have to all flow up to me or up to Shelby or to Taylor to take on. We will take a step back, yet support that person.
Yeah.
The rest of the team sees that too. So remember, it doesn't really matter your status or your job title if you're out there. You want big buy-in? Take somebody that's a step under you or two steps under you and say, hey, you take the lead on this, but you be at the meeting and support.
Yep.
Don't talk, but support. Support. One thing that it comes to my mind, I listen to Craig Rochelle a whole lot on his leadership podcast. He talks about when he goes to his different church locations, he never gets up on stage and tries to speak, even though he's the face
Yeah.
of Life Church.
Yeah.
He doesn't do that because he wants to be there to support and empower, and he wants the congregation to see that he is supporting that pastor that's there and what's being said.
Yes.
So that's the same thing with us.
Yep.
Is like, hey, Shelby's taking the lead on this one. Boom. Let me back him up. Hey, Taylor's passionate on this part. Let me not only say you take the reins on this, but let me back you up and let the rest of the employees see that. And y'all probably resonate with this when I bring this up. But can you remember growing up in school and you're sitting in class and then all of a sudden one day the principal or the vice principal comes and sits in the back of the classroom? I always would think about like, man, did somebody get in trouble?
Yeah.
Like, why are they in here? And it never resonated until I got into business. They were there supporting, doing a quality checkup. They didn't have to talk, but their presence was there, inspecting what they expected in the classroom. And that's the same thing when we're talking about buy-in here and support within your team.
The kids knew they needed to be on their game. The teacher knew
It
they better
elevated
be on their
both
game.
parties.
You
It
know
did.
what I mean? And they kind of gave some order without having to say anything.
At all.
Yep.
Anything at all. So that's like the we'll call that layer 4 here of our step 3 deal.
Of after you've deployed the
Yes.
inspection and the follow through and the follow up.
Yes.
Because I don't know of one system, one process, or one thing that we've been able to put in place that we've been able to sit and forget.
I was going to say that. And like so many people, you know what people say when they try that though and it doesn't work? They're like, didn't work. I tried it.
And now I love that for our sake because it's pretty easy to win if you can just be consistent and make little changes here and there. But I mean, even from AI, like, oh, it's so good. Like, man, you better get in there and inspect it because it's gonna. Let me tell you, this is so good.
Okay.
So yesterday, Verkada is our camera company that has AI, over 170 cameras, our access control that does all our locks, and it's. I remember talking you into this. It was so much more expensive. And I was like, we do not need a solid state drive. That is so old school. That is dumb. But here's an option if you want to go that way. So I got an email yesterday from a Verkada rep, and there's a lot of reps, right? We've been through that. I won't bring that part up. But so I got an email from a rep yesterday and was like, hey, and he was doing his due diligence. I'm proud of him. He just didn't go a layer enough deep. And I knew this only because... And he said, hey, I just want to say I just saw the acquisition of Lewis Chevrolet in Kansas. It's awesome to have them integrated in the team. Let me know if you have any questions getting them onboarded. Have a outstanding day.
We're flying on the moon.
Yeah, baby. And so I wasn't going to respond, but I was like, hey, guy, took the time. And it's funny because in Google now, and I just done this 2 days before, and it made complete sense when he answered. You can Google search it, and then it says AI. It's Google's AI.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was working on some Google My Business Metrics, some stuff, and looking at it, and it said AI. And when I did that, it combined Lewis Automotive Group and this whole recap of Lewis Automotive Group here and Lewis Automotive Group in Hayes, Kansas, what we know. So that's where, and so I sent the guy an email back. I was like, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's like, actually, we're locally here in Arkansas, family-owned. family operated. The other group you're talking about is in Hays, Kansas, and that's not part of us. He's like, dang. He responds, dang. Well, I've got Google to thank for that because it came across my news feed this morning, and I didn't fact check any of it.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, man, no harm, no foul, right? And so I remember it, now I'm talking about it. But there's not any system you can just say go and just let her rip, right? You got to inspect it. If you really want it to be successful, which I hope you do if you're putting all the time and effort and money into it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So really diving into understanding the why, involving your team, and from the buy-in to the execution process, it's all so important. All the pieces have to be taken care of in their own retrospect to make sure that, hey, this is how it's going to be effective. This is how you're going to move forward. So making sure diving into anything else on there you think that we...
That was pretty good.
Absolutely. Okay. I got you. Well, good. We'll dive it into there. Great episode today. Hey, getting to the best part of the day, your favorite. You love these, so we make sure we're really deep dive into it. But
Frequently asked questions? Is that where you're going?
Yeah, it's a producer. He loves throwing the questions.
All right,
at
well,
me.
hit it, Harry.
Matt, what do you do on your time off? I'm
No,
kidding.
that's not what it says.
What is the leadership skill that you would like to improve or learn? And then Shelby, how do you improve your leadership skills? Read, podcast, run, bike, whatever, holler, sauna, anything like that. So coming back, Matt, what is a leadership or...
First, I would just like to thank for the deep questions that our producer puts out here. But let me jump on this one. You know, what's the leadership skill that you would like to improve on or learn? And that's a great question, because I think as a leader, no matter what position or how much you've grown, if you don't continue to get better, you don't expect the rest of your team to get better either. So one of the things that I'm currently working on and studying others is when you scale a business to the next level, which is what we're doing, what type of strategies do you put in place to better empower and inspect at the same time, not just empower and forget about it, others underneath you?
Yes.
To allow to free up your time more to work on the business.
Yep. Okay, that's good.
It's solid.
Shelby, how do you improve your leadership skills?
Yeah, so probably just do a quick fact check of like, hey, what am I good at and what could I improve on and what am I not good at all? And also do a quick like systems check how the gauges look. And let's say that I came up with some things, or let's say just kind of all across the board. Listening is going to be my thing. Listening or viewing. So like anytime that I am eating lunch, I'm watching a YouTube video on something educational. Habit stacking is a very large thing that we talk about and that we do. So in drive time, you know, my drive's like 17 minutes. But if you start compiling that micro, like I read, it's pretty crazy because I had some errands to run and a couple things to do, and add in 3 hours of workout that day, and then I was able to read an entire book in 2 days. It was 8 hours and 41 minutes. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you know, I put it at 1.25 speed, and it depends how fast they're reading.
Sure.
But if I'm reading it, I'll get bored. If I'm physically reading it, I'm not gifted to be just a speed reader.
Sure.
But if I can't read while going down the road, but I can listen. So if it's a podcast or if it's a book, and I have to mix in, because if I just try to do full data download, like while I'm exercising, sometimes I'll just be like, because when you exercise, you lose some bandwidth in your brain, and you're like, stop, just turn on some music or something. So you got to find that happy mix there. But then I have to slow down so that I'm not just like full download of listen to all these things, because then I'll be like spaghetti of like, okay, well, it's like, oh yeah, I just figured out how I just got a major in biology, and it's like, hang on. So that I have to go through those, and then I'll go back, because a lot of times they have in audiobooks, they have workbooks, so you can go find those.
That's good.
If you have the ability to, while you're listening, to take notes on that, it's really good. And sometimes that's a voice note, you know, if you're running or doing something. So it's definite habit stack, and it's listening or watching something is how I grow my leadership skills, to make sure that stay on the front side of your seat, not backwards in the seat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. That's so important to know, to make sure you're doing it at the right time of day, because everything has good aspects of it. It's like the time that one of y'all told me about The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. But you have to be at the right time of day, because I was doing it at the end of my days. And if you listen to that book of going through, it's really slow speed. And it's just of the time and everything that I went through. So making sure you're putting that at the right time. Whatever the training is, if it needs to be first of the day, middle of the day, or end of the day, winding down. So huge deal there. Great answers, going through, really diving in. Make sure and always check us out on lewissuperstore.com or check us out online at crossroadsconversationpodcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure and give it a like, share it with your friends and family, and visit our website to send us questions about what you would like to know about the automotive industry or family business in general. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again, and we'll see you in future shows.